Hi, everyone. I'm Tran Bowie. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, back in March, Phil Walters of Roswell was taken to the hospital. He found out that he was positive for COVID-19, and soon he was under quarantine and in ICU away from his family. Shortly after that, his wife, Cristal, posted a message on Facebook asking for prayers. And just like that, many of us now feel that the coronavirus hit close to home. So Phil is in the hospital for 21 days, and I'm so happy to report that he is back home. And let me tell you, he looks good. Hi, thank you so much. Welcome back.
Hello, thank you very much.
I mean, let's tell everyone how you are feeling because you look good.
Well, it's been a little better every day. I've been physically active as much as possible. It really starts to being in that sedated state for so long, your muscles and start to atrophy, and you really get very weak. But thanks to my wife and family, I've been doing a lot more exercising, walking. We're down here at Lake Oconee, and it's been very. The house we're in is in one level, so it allows me to get around a lot easier, and it's been better every day. I've actually been able to get out and about a little bit with my wife, and I even drove the car once.
Wow.
So
Gosh, I have so many questions. Cristal, when we first talked, I do have to tell our viewers that Cristal and I are friends. Our kids go to the same schools. And so when you posted that message that Phil had COVID-19, I mean, I think it just like for all of us, it just like shook us because now it hits really close to home. And it was so terrifying each day to read your messages. How does it feel to have him back home?
It feels great. It's kind of scary to know how fragile our lives are, and that it feels great. It feels great. There are always going to be those unanswered questions. I mean, right now, especially because simply science and people they don't know what to tell us when we ask specific things like, is Phil immune to it? What are the chances of him getting it and whatever, which we're still not going anywhere. We're just being here at this house. So I'm not really worried about much.
Was it difficult when he first came home though? Because Phil, you were released and then it's like, okay, you're good to go. So now Cristal, he is now back in the home and you are having to physically help him move around because he's still weak, even though he's no longer considered COVID-19 positive, right? So how was that?
It was scary because his brain still wasn't telling his body what to do correctly, and his body was very weak and couldn't do it anyway, even if his brain was working 100%. Luckily, I borrowed a baby monitor from a neighbor that had a video screen. It saved my sanity because I could carry the thing around and watch him. And it was so bizarre. He was up every 15 minutes when he was in the bedroom taking a nap. He was just kind of walking around and I don't know. It was weird, but Nick is here. My boy Nick is a big boy, and I knew that if Phil would fall or whatever, I had muscle at least, but I didn't know what his brain was going to be doing. I didn't really know how his demeanor would be, and it was disconcerting, but we got through it.
How is it now?
He's so perfect. He's back to normal. Even like
right. Well, he has a sense of humor back, right? So, okay, I want to go back to March, Phil. Mm-hmm. That day, because I think it started with a cough, right? So, how are you feeling?
Initially, I haven't been able to 100% place where I was exposed to it. We had come down to the lake house. I was in Roswell at the time. We'd come down to the lake house, and I was just starting to cough real bad. I couldn't catch my breath, and that's when they took me to um, a medical center. Wasn't where I ended up ultimately, but that was the closest medical center, and I just couldn't breathe. It just got to me, and then I was in there, and a young lady had done a chest X-ray, and when she got the X-ray back, which was only a moments after she took it, her face changed, and I'm like, well, that's not good.
Mm.
She didn't have the doctor face, that you need to have.
Right. And then, so you were immediately rushed. So when did it become like you're now coughing, and then all of a sudden how did you get to ICU? Do you remember any of that?
Well, actually, I don't. I knew I was going, but what happened was they're constantly checking your blood oxygen, and I got it up to like 93. You want to be about 97, 98. And I got it up to 93, but then over the next day, I watched it drop where I couldn't get it over 90 or 89.
89.
And once you get below 90, you're really in a dangerous area.
Wow.
And so I was already on IVs for different medications and fluid. And they basically just put me out and intubated me at the medical center. And then I had the ride, ambulance. And the next thing I remember fully was when I came to, and I wasn't an ideal patient at that point.
I think you remember coming to completely, because he doesn't remember pulling his own tube out of his mouth. He doesn't remember ripping his IVs out necessarily.
Wow. And what is that from? Is that your personality, or is that from the medication or the virus?
It can be a combination.
I think it was a combination.
You're basically in a sedated state, and you really have pretty psychotic dreams. It's all these things that are going through your head that you
swear are real. It just feels like it's a real time thing happening right then.
Wow.
So I needed to get to the bathroom, and that's what my goal was, whatever it took. And I didn't even know why, but that's what I felt. And the male nurse and I, we danced for a little while.
Oh, bless him.
But at the end of the day, I was able. I got back in a rested state. I really wanted water. I was very thirsty.
Yeah.
And because that thing was down my throat, and I just couldn't. And then, so after that, the next day, they took me out of ICU.
Okay.
So,
and when you're in the hospital, what are they doing? Are they getting medication, or are they just trying to keep you calm?
No, I mean, you're getting medications. I have an underlying issue, and that was I'm type 2 diabetes. I have type 2 diabetes.
And your blood pressure. They could not get his blood pressure under control. It was hard.
Wow.
So that fed into the reason. But once I came to, and they had my lungs back, where I was getting, my oxygen up to 95, 96. It became, your brain is still not working right, because you've been under all these medications to keep you sedated. And one day I called Cristal and I said, "You need to come pick me up. I'm in South Atlanta." She goes, "Sweetie, you're in Athens." I said, "No, I'm in South Atlanta."
Oh, his voice was like a normal Phil talking to me, saying, "No, I'm definitely in South Atlanta."
Wow.
And then the nurse came in. I said, "We're in South Atlanta, right?" She goes, "No, you're in Athens, sir." I'm like, "Whoa, okay."
Did you ever, were there moments of just like darkness where you were just like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to make it out of this? Or did you ever go there, you thought everything was going to be fine?
That's unfortunately, that's for everybody else, because I'm literally, when I came to, I was feisty. I was like, okay, I need to get out of here. What do I need to do? And I said, how much longer, once I got out of ICU, the biggest problem with me was I kept trying to get up and get out of bed.
Kept falling, so he wouldn't make it to his next destination because he was wiping out, even though he wasn't supposed to be getting up anyway. They ended up putting a monitor in his room. They gave him a special bed that's netted so he can't get out of it. It's called a posy bed. Oh my God, bless him.
That was just for 2 days, but it seemed like a really long time.
So, Cristal, what was it like for you? Because, I mean, unfortunately, with COVID-19, you were in fear of also being positive, and you're not allowed to go in, and you're not allowed to talk to him or be, and the nurses and the staff, they can't just monitor him for you, 24/7 or bring in a phone for you to talk. So what was that like for you?
I felt helpless, and I felt hopeless a little bit because I had no way. It was such a bad feeling. I can't even describe it. One thing that kept me comforted, well, many things kept me comforted, but anytime I ever called the nurses station there, they were more than helpful. They were always ready to help me. Even if I might have had to wait on the phone a couple of times, they were amazing, absolutely amazing. Told me every single time that I hung up with them to call back anytime you want, even if it's in 15 minutes, you call back anytime you want. So that gave me a lot of comfort. And it not being able to communicate with him also, I try to keep things in perspective, and I think of these articles that I've read and videos that I've seen of other people also not being able to be in touch with their loved ones, not even just for COVID related reasons, but just for everyday stuff. And they don't have I had concierge, because I had an ICU situation. So I felt lucky then that they were so helpful. These other people that can't see their loved ones aren't necessarily in ICU. So I guess I felt kind of lucky some of the time too.
Wow, what a perspective. For all of those who are watching, if you would like to ask questions, we will post your questions under the comments, and we'll try to get them answered today. So, Phil, what was the turning point? What happened that got you back to us?
I think what happens is they're doing your clean your lungs up. You've got a really bad infection, and they have to get it to a point where they feel you can breathe properly, and they start taking you out. They start taking you out of sedation, coma, however you want to look at it. Okay. And like I said earlier, mine was kind of personally was a light switch, because I literally I was aware enough of my situation that I just realized I was being held down, if you want. I was like, I just didn't know where I was. I literally didn't understand why I was unable to get around or move. And that's, so I came out, and talking to the people, it's not that uncommon for people to literally, be afraid, because you just don't know what's happening to you. And that's where it all, and once that happened, for the most part, I was there. I was, mentally cognizant of what was happening, and just trying to get information from everybody as much as possible to understand. And it wasn't until the next day, actually, that was Saturday, the 11th, day before Easter. And I didn't get to talk to Cristal until later in the afternoon on the 12th. And I think she had talked to the nurse and asked him, said, "Hey, why haven't you?" She said, "Why haven't you called me? It's you called me back at 6 o'clock. I called you much earlier." And he basically said he was dealing with me.
That was the day, that was that day that he pulled all of his stuff out and was just a belligerent little man.
No.
He couldn't
I didn't know.
But that's exactly, so that's funny that you asked that, Tran, because Phil and I haven't even asked this question, or we haven't discussed that part. The light switch is a perfect analogy about how I view it. And what I learned from my niece is an ICU nurse. His buddy is a doctor. And and we also have a doctor in the neighborhood, Dr. Dennis. And they all were telling me that what happens when you're intubated is your brain, when they pull you out of sedation, your brain can understand what's going on, but your body can't breathe on its own because the machine won't let it. So it feels like they're breathing through a straw, and they know that it feels like they're breathing through a straw. And they think they can do it, but many times they can't on their own. And that's why weaning off of the vent is a slow, arduous process in many cases. I think that turning point was when he just knew he could do it, and he put it all out himself. Now, that doesn't mean that he knew something that didn't mean that he could have really done it. And according to Nicole, my niece, she has seen people be Houdini, who were restrained with their wrists bound, whatever, and they were just able to finagle the tube out, and they were in a complete blackout, so to speak, during that time. But
so what
anyway,
needs to happen? What needs to happen before they send you home?
I have to maintain a certain temperature that I'm not. They want you to have a normal temperature. They want to make sure your blood oxygen is at a certain level. So
and his blood pressure too,
and also a certain level of physical ability. They had a therapist come in basically every day for the last 4 days and walk me around a little bit, and get up from sitting down and doing a few other things, so that I had some dexterity and a physical ability. And once they were sure of that, basically the infection was gone at that point. So I left with no antibiotics or anything. I had run through the whole the cycle that they wanted me to have,
and then some. They did a I forgot what the term for it is, but it's just a broad spectrum antibiotic because they couldn't get his temperature to come down and be low enough. So they just put him on and many things can cause an extra infection. The vent itself can, if you have catheters, those can, whatever. IVs.
Let's not talk about catheters.
Oh, yeah.
I'll skip that part.
But they part of the treatment was the hydroxychloroquine, and I really think that made a difference in making it a relatively short stay compared to a lot of people who had to do this or been through this, I should say.
So is this a normal time frame? Because I know we're seeing a little bit of every, different for every patient. And so was that normal or about average?
What I've been led to understand, it was a little shorter than normal.
Okay.
And, I don't have exactly a really big trial group to talk about through, but, I've been led to say that it was, I got through it relatively quickly. And like I said, once I got off the vent, I was only there for 5 days. And they were like, okay, you can go. Of course, I was trying to get up. I was like, I can do this for myself. I can take care,
He was a nightmare is what he was the first couple of days.
They had to put a video monitor on me.
Yeah.
And then they would go, Mr. Walters, stay in the bed. Mr. Walters. I heard that a few times.
100 times. So I was saying it when he was just wandering around here. Mr. Walters, can you please sit back down?
So an ankle monitor for him.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So what is now? When do you actually when are you considered recovered, and what's next for you?
Well, last week I finished my in-home physical therapy. So
wow.
They, she, said, you're fine. And we'd walk down to the lake, and we'd walk up to the street and do certain things to make sure that I had my balance and to at least a decent degree, and physical strength. And it's like I said, it's a little bit better every day. And I need to schedule with my primary care an appointment. Probably they wanted to do it within 4 weeks, so it's getting pretty close when I need to go back.
We did a quick telehealth follow-up, so to speak, so the doctor could see where he was. It was just a few days after he came home. But he doesn't seem, a lot of people say that you get a lot of scarring in your lungs and around your heart, and he had some heart stuff going on. So the doctor was more concerned about him getting checked by a cardiologist more so than a pulmonologist at this point, which I thought for sure he'd want to get his lungs checked first, and then, but he mentioned the cardiologist more so than the pulmonologist.
Okay, well, we have a question from Casey. Phil, do you know your blood type? I've heard that type A is most susceptible. Do you know?
They didn't even have it. So someone asked me this while he was in the hospital. I called one of the times when I called ICU. They didn't even have that up on their. She said she could dig for it, and I said, "Oh no, you have enough to do you have enough to do, so don't worry about it. This was just a curiosity thing." So, and I don't know his blood type.
And I've had it for almost 59 years, and I don't know it either.
Oh, he's had the same blood type is what he's saying. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think he's recovering.
We'll look into it. We will look into it and post it somewhere. What his blood type is. That's a good question.
If it's A, she was saying she thought it was more susceptible.
Yes.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to know. That's interesting. I haven't heard that. So I would like to know that. So are you okay to go out? So you are going out and
you're going to the store, we've been to, Walmart and Home Depot and grocery store. Not a lot of, I'm not trying to do an ad for them, but yes, I'm able to do pretty much to a limited degree anything you would do, that is under normal.
He's technically cleared if you want to. If you want to get technical with what the doctors are saying and recommendations and CDC recommendations and all of that stuff. So he's cleared, but he just doesn't feel like doing a whole lot. And I don't think he needs to necessarily.
Right. And have they said, is there a chance it could come back, or is there that fear?
I don't think they've said anything about it.
They don't know because it's a different strain, right? But generally speaking, you build up some immunities to it. I'm not living my life in fear of getting it back. And I'm not looking for it. But at the same time, I am never been a germaphobe type of person. Life comes at you. You deal with it the best that you can. And I would imagine, and I've been reading that you do build up immunities to it, and so not worried about getting it back. And I think because the Cristal and even the kids lost their sense of taste and a few other things, which would lead me to believe that they'd obviously been very much exposed to it when I was here for 4 days before I went to the hospital. Luckily there was no that was it. So they're what do they call it?
Symptoms.
Asymptomatic.
Asymptomatic, I'm under the impression is you have no symptoms, but you're a carrier of it. We all had some mild symptoms, but we didn't know what was pollen and what was bonfire. We had I made a fire one night, anyway, that's a whole nother can of worms to open up.
So we're, it's like I said, it's a little better every day. I'm ready to do more, but being housebound, and I actually like to get to the gym. That would be nice to be able to get a little little more exercise because, like I said, I atrophy is noticeable even to me, and you're like, okay, I need to get back
Yeah,
and
we'll have
work
to
on.
put you on some gym Zoom meetings. I know that SFX is showing some like live videos. So wrap it up by saying, Cristal, when you were posting the updates on Phil, I know that so many of us in the Roswell community were with you and felt those emotions with you, and we're praying for you both. And so to me, it's just so wonderful to see you in front of us now, live and looking healthy and feeling good. So the message that you two have for the community.
Well, for me, thank you so much for all the kind words and prayers and gestures to help my family in a pretty dire time, and just thank you that everyone can rally around when someone gets in a situation, and thank God, the outcome ended up being what it did, and allowing my family to be whole again, and us to be able to continue to move forward, and maybe and of course, if something happens to somebody else within our community, we want to help to do the same thing.
And it will, and it has already. There has been stuff, but we have a tight knit group. It's huge, the community, and I mean, it's not just the Roswell community. It's everyone that we've ever come in contact with. It's someone said early on in this that they hope that the silver lining for this whole thing is a stronger, better world. And I said the same thing. I know that there will be silver linings that we don't anticipate having, but my immediate community that is connected to us gave me such comfort knowing that they were there. I mean, it was weird because no one could come to the house or anything, but it just makes you feel better to know that you have a lot of people behind you, and it worked.
Yes,
it was amazing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, and I think it speaks volumes about the two of you and the impact that you've had on your community and this community. So I'm not surprised that people rallied, and I'm so happy that you're back. So enjoy this time, heal, be well, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Good talking to you.